Hey, Luke here. In this video we're going to talk about strapless surfboard. So picking a strapless surfboard if you're getting into strapless or you've already been riding strapless. We're going to go through some of the differences between the boards that you might be looking at and that you can ride. So the differences in shape and how they perform, and what's really going to suit your particular riding style depending on what it is you want to get into, or what stage you're at already. So we've got three boards here and we're going to be sort of comparing these three boards and talking about what is significantly different among these. And I just want to start by saying, I'm not an expert, board shaper or anything like that, and so this is really just my opinion. I'm just going to be talking about what my experience with it and what I've found with these different boards. But hopefully by the end of this, you'll just have a better sort of general idea about what sort of shape and style board you can look for. So the three boards that we've got to compare is my actual surfboard. So this is just classic surfboard, okay? This is just classic surfboard construction. Then we've got the Ocean Rodeo Jester, which is more of a freestyle crossover board, and we're going to go through what's different about that one. And then we've got the Cabrina sort of strapless or even strapped board, directional surfboard as well. So we're going to cover just a few different points about what this is, but to get started, I just want to say, if you're looking at strapless at all, you really can ride anything. So you'll see people out there on skim boards, so literally a piece of plywood, all the way to riding big, longer boards and single fin boards and boards with quad fins, and then specific kite surfing boards, and then surfboards, right? You can pretty much ride any board, anything that will pull you along the water's surface. But this is more about fine tuning into your own particular riding style. So to get into it, let's talk about the sort of the length and the width, and what differences that can make. So you can see immediately that they're all different sizes, and overall, the longer the board and the wider the board, the easier it's going to be to get up and plane along the water's surface, but the less maneuverable you're going to feel that it is. So if we look at this board, it's 5'11", and then this one is 5'1", and then this one is 5'8". Okay, so the 5'11", this big board is going to make it a lot easier just to get up onto your feet and go along, but this board is going to make it a lot easier to sort of grab, spin. Okay, this is just such a smaller board to move around, and so for freestyle tricks, jumps, things like that, the shorter board might be more suited to you. If you're really just looking to cruise around on the water's surface in light winds particularly, then a bigger board with more volume might be suited to you. My first sort of kite specific surfboard was a big slingshot board, and I had fun on it cruising around. It's like massive. It's even bigger than this one, right? It's this sort of big wide board, but in the end I decided this isn't working for me. And the reason that I found that was that what comes typically with the bigger board, the longer board, the thicker board, the wider board, and the construction of these kite surf specific boards is weight, right? They become a lot heavier, and when they're heavier, it makes it so much harder to jump and do any trick really. Okay, so you might be able to plane along the water surface easier, but it really holds you back from that progression once you start wanting to get into some more moves, which you will definitely want to do. Even if you're only just starting out and you think, oh, I just want to cruise along, I think at the end of the day you're like, oh, I want to try a little jump now. Okay, that's sort of the natural progression of kite surfing anyway. So this board is significantly smaller than this board, okay, but it's going to be heaps better for freestyle, and this one's going to be better for just cruising around. My surfboard's somewhere in between, and one of the reasons, like I just mentioned, that I like the surfboard, or that I like sort of a surfboard construction board, is the weight. So this board, you'll find typically your surfboards are going to be lighter in weight. Now some people, if I turn it over, some people don't like that, because what comes with that lighter weight is more damage. And you can see the compression dings here from when I'm landing my jumps or anything, pushing down into the deck. I don't know if you can see that, but we've really starting to get a bit of a pressure ding all through here. And so it's much more susceptible to damage. You could potentially break it in half, but I really tend to like, it's a personal preference and not everyone's going to agree here, but I like pressure dings. I like having my front foot sort of sunk into the board a little bit. It sort of gives a place for your foot when you land in, and you know, that's just a personal preference. It means that you probably might go through more boards, but you know, it's still going to last you a year unless you come down on it really heavy. The Ocean Rodeo is actually really light as well. Now, this board is built for straps, so if you're thinking, do I need to get one that takes straps as well, you'll see this, you know, you can put your straps on here, and you can put your straps on this one as well. Okay, so it suits people that want to have that ability to put straps on it. If you're undecided about having straps on your board, I would say that, you know, really, in my opinion, you should decide not to have straps on your board. And there's a couple of reasons why I don't like straps. One is it fixes your back foot position. So wherever this strap placement is, that's where your foot goes. But when you're riding and you want to start doing different things, even big turns into waves, you want to kick your foot right to the back, and then when you're trying to ride upwind, you might bring your foot right up here to the front, and you're moving your foot around a lot. And so I prefer so much more to have a board that is strapless, so you can move your foot placement all the time. If we look at this one, you've got your back foot right back here, and look how long the board is, okay? So now you've got this long board, you've got your back foot at the tail, and you can't move it forward, which means you're gonna start sort of slapping along on the water surface, right? You can't get your weight over the center of the board while you're just trying to tack upwind or cruise along. And so, particularly on bigger boards like this, I just don't see the benefit in having straps at all, apart from doing jumps, and that's sort of my next point. A lot of the kite specific, you know, surfboards shape, directional board shape that come for the straps or the strapless, I think a lot of the reasons that, you know, some of those boards are so heavy is that they're allowing for people that want to put straps on them. Because when you put straps on them, you can come down on them a lot harder. You can throw your kite into the air and then up you go, you're doing a jump, you make a mistake up in the air somehow, you haven't got perfect technique, but you can still just land straight on the board, right? Really heavy, just like you might with your twin tip. And so by doing so, because it's got such a longer surface area, you can put your foot straight through one of these surfboards easily if you come down on it that heavily. If you're just doing strapless only, then it requires a bit more technique to be able to land on your board at all. If you try and do that same trick where you crashed heavily, you know, with your straps, chances are you're going to lose the board before that happens. Okay, so either you can throw it away because it's in your hand, or if you're just throwing yourself way up into the sky, the board's not going to come with you unless you've got good technique to allow the board to come up with you, meaning that you don't come down on it as heavily, so you're not as likely to snap it anyway because you don't have straps on it, which means that you can have a lighter board. So why would you be looking for a lighter board? The whole reason to look for a lighter board is as you start doing more tricks and trying to do jumps, the weight of the board is one of the biggest factors, along with wind strength, that actually keeps that board on your feet, and technique. Okay, so there's sort of the three factors: the weight, the wind strength, and your technique. But as you jump up into the air, if you've got a lighter board, that wind's just going to hold that board to the bottom of your feet a little bit longer, and so it can make a lot of your strapless sort of tricks a lot easier as well. If you've seen our other video for the board that I made, you know, it was really fun as well, and it's back in Canada at the moment. We're in the Dominican Republic at the moment, but it's in Canada, and I just brought the Ocean Rodeo Jester down and my surfboard down, and this is sort of more of a similar shape to that board that I built. And why I like this board and I like my board that I built is got a lot to do with this wider tail. When you're picking your strapless board, in my opinion, you should try and find something with a bit of a wider tail. And the reason is that even though this board's shorter, so you're bringing that length down to say 5'1", and you might surf on a 6 foot, right? And you're bringing it all the way down a foot smaller than you would you ride a surfboard. Having a bit of an extra volume in the tail here, a bit extra width, means that you can shift your weight back a little bit and it doesn't feel short. When I'm riding this board, I don't feel like, oh, I'm on this tiny little board. It feels quite comfortable, and you can see it's because they've left a lot of that width coming back into the tail, which means you can center your weight on it a lot more, so you get the sort of the benefit of the lighter weight with the maneuverability, plus you can ride it upwind perfectly fine, right? And you can plane perfectly fine. With this board, this is my surfboard, but you can see I still have chosen a bit of a wider tail, and that makes it, you know, that little bit easier. The next thing you might want to look for is how you're going to set up your fins. So you can see at the moment, all three of these boards are set up for a thruster, right? So they've all got the 3 fins in, but they all have the ability to set up, you know, they've got a 5 fin setup, so you can set up your quad or your thruster. And a couple of little tips for what you might be, you know, interested in. The quad, I find, allows you to tack upwind a little bit easier. You got those sort of 2 fins right against that rail that you sort of, you know, edge in against, because you're so much more on your rail, so much more frequently, that the quad will make it a little bit easier to get upwind. However, I find that it's fun like really laying into waves, right? Because you can hold that rail a lot harder, except I find that whenever you try and do any freestyle in the quad, you have to land it perfectly. It doesn't allow for that little bit of slippage with your tail when you land. And that, again, that's probably just my technique that I need to improve in order to make that happen. Except I do find that the thruster makes it a lot easier to start doing those freestyle tricks, just, you know, particularly if you're getting into it. And I like to go down a fin size. So for any freestyle, if you're, you know, based on your size and your weight and how you'd surf, maybe you ride large fins or medium fins, or however you like that, or how, you know, however you surf if you do surf. But I like to come down a size. So for freestyle, I like to ride small fins, and then if I'm in the waves, I like to have medium fins. But again, if it gets bigger, or if you're surfing waves and you get into bigger waves, then you'd want to set up your board for riding that wave, even with the kite, okay? Because, you know, your fins, you don't want to slip out on the bottom turn and stuff. But if it's just free ride, you're going around, doing some jumps, riding some waves, then you can have slightly smaller fins, and I think you'll find that's a little more forgiving, and you can still ride upwind and everything, and it's just a little looser and more fun. So, look, I think that's just a bit of an overview of, you know, how these boards might be different for you. I'd say overall, I'd like to recommend that you go with strapless and you look for a nice board with a lighter weight, and, you know, you can have a deck pad. You can have a deck pad, all wax, and that's really going to be a preference of yours. I like both of them. The wax I find is really nice sometimes because it gets nice and sticky, and the deck pad, you know, it's obviously a lot cleaner, a lot easier to manage. You can take it everywhere, it's already set up. So that's, again, just a thing for preference, but it's heaps of fun, guys. So, you know, when you're looking for a board slightly shorter than you might surf with, and just, you know, a nice lighter board, maybe slightly narrower, slightly shorter, slightly thinner, and I think you'll have a really good time. Okay, thanks guys, we'll see you in the next one.